Kansas is a really good example of all of this in kind of action.
Yeah, Kansas is a great example. I worked, my colleagues at Omega Point International, which is Stephanie Nessel Road, and she and her partner went into the Kansas Department of Social and Rehabilitation Services. Now this is a 6,000 person organization. They're responsible for running the state mental hospitals, for food stamps, for welfare, for unemployment insurance, for job retraining, for child protective services. I mean, it's a huge, sprawling organization. And you know, it's state-run. It receives federal funding as well as state funding, and it's very political because every time there's an election, the governor gets the chance to appoint a new head of that department. So you can have, you know, programs in there that are running really well, and the new person comes in and decides they don't like that program, and it can create it can throw a real wrench in things. So they're in a situation where they have been traditionally a command and control hierarchical organization. They've been very intervention based, you know, sort of by the book, and you know, this is how we do things. And that worked really well, or as well as it could have in the 20th century. But now, a lot of people who are senior there are at retirement age. So there's going to be probably 60 to 70% of the people will be retiring between now and 2015. So there's this huge brain drain going on. And younger people who are coming out of college now have been trained very differently. And they don't want to be in these, you know, silos and have a book that, okay, look up stuff and here's what we're going to do for this situation. No, they know the world doesn't work like that. You've got to be a lot more able to deal with emergence and what's going on in the moment. So to their credit, they allowed my colleagues to come in there and teach them some processes that weren't going to bear any fruit for at least 6 months. They told them flat out, they said, the first 6 months of our training, you're going to be pulling your hair out, you're not going to understand what's going on. And they actually taught them a lot of things like mindfulness, you know, and holding ambiguity, and you know, working with situations where there's nothing, where nothing is clear. And she was right. For the first 6 months, they're like, where are we? What are we doing? These people come here, they spend 4 days in a row, and they leave, and we walk around like, what did we just do? I'm really pleased that they got the opportunity to do that. You know, in my line of work, we often talk about change happening in biological time, because we have bodies, right? And bodies change in their own time. Anybody who's put on weight at the holidays knows that you don't make up your mind on January 1st, that on January 2nd you will drop 15 pounds, right? There's a lot of work between January 1st and April 1st when that weight is off, okay? Change happens in biological time. So they were given the opportunity to work with these folks, and they trained them in lots of large group processes. I was brought in to help them with World Cafe and Open Space. We worked with the top 55 managers of these 6,000 person organization, and we basically rewired their entire brains on how to approach things from a business standpoint of, you know, the traditional models aren't working, you need to try something new, and it's all based in conversation. You know, you've got to learn how to talk to people differently. You've got to learn how to step away from the old, you know, being protective of your resources, and instead start to learn the value of a network, that every individual is replaceable, but people who are key nodes in networks, who know how to get things done, are very, very valuable. And even people who don't seem to be very valuable in a network because they just know one thing, they can be connected to the right person, and all of a sudden they make a very great contribution. So we were going from a very command and control hierarchical to a much more distributed networked model, and it was all based around prevention rather than intervention. So what can we do in the short run that will save us money in the long run? And how do we keep people from burning out? Give them time off, give them vacations, give them, you know, stress reduction programs in the workplace. All the things that are starting to come out of the, you know, the great contribution to the human potential movement 40 years ago, is that it's finally seeping into the mass consciousness that it's really good to take walks and to breathe deeply and to rest and to stretch and to eat healthy foods and drink lots of water, and all the stuff that your grandparents knew that, you know, our generation kind of forgot is now sort of coming back into play.
Yeah, I just that's so ridiculous. I mean, that our organizations don't do that. I mean, that's a great case study of seeing it as a real, seeing the whole organization as a living entity that it needs to take care of itself so that it can do what it needs to do in the world and have healthy relationships both internally and with the community that they're serving.
That was another big piece of the Kansas work, was we started to really lean hard on them about being real, valuable member of the community. So it's not just that people look at social rehab services as the place to go when you're unemployed. They start to look at it as, this is a vital part of my community. And so we began a big listening program of them communicating directly with the members of their community, people who are getting welfare and food stamps, and they started to interview them and invite them in for surveys and questions and conversations about how can we serve you better, what would it be, what would make this system work for you. It was pretty much unheard of for a government organization to open up and ask their customers what their customers really needed. And there actually is a case study on this. Stephanie Nesselrode and Lori Alvarado, who was at the time the head of this project, have done case studies on this and presented at the Pegasus Systems Thinking Conference and a few other conferences. So I'm sure I can get you the information on that if you want to be able to check that out, because they've actually done quite a bit of detailing what was going on there.
It would seem that that's one of those things that would be a very good thing to do in many different places.
It would seem that, yes. Simple but not easy.